all expectations from the betting markets, Brett, were this was going to be Jayden Daniels. And Jayden Daniels, guys, Brett and Scott, you both can speak to this. It's not a complete death knell because Joe Burrow was one of these guys, but pressure to sack ratio is a horrible stat for Jayden Daniels. And some of the biggest busts at the quarterback position in the last number of years had horrible pressure to sack ratios in the NFL or in college football. Brett, is that a concern for you when it comes to Jayden Daniels?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the propensity for him to take off and run is pretty astounding. Now, the thing I think that gets buried, though, and because people have a hard time applying context to literally anything, and Scott, you can verify, when we watched his tape, we watched his entire third down playlist. Not a lot of scrambles, not a lot of sacks. It's usually 1st and 10 when he's willing to take a sack. That doesn't necessarily mean it's okay, but I think when you have the legs and the skill set Jayden Daniels does, the coaching staff might be a little bit okay with you being a playmaker. Again, it doesn't excuse it. I think an NFL team is going to have to find that proper balance where it's like, we're going to be aggressive. We want you to attack with those legs, but you can't extend plays beyond, a certain point here. Like, we got to stay on schedule. But as long as they find that balance and tweak it, he should be okay, because I think it's a little bit different than some of those other prospects.
Yeah, so this is one of the better, more predictive stats we have. And this is really only works as like a red flag stat where if you're within a certain bucket, the hit rate is really, really low. And his pressure to sack was much worse than that of Joe Burrow's. And, like Brett had with the added context, it's like 3rd and long sacks don't really hurt you as much. And that was a high percentage of Burrow's sacks. As for why he might be an outlier, I will say his yards per pass attempt when holding the ball longer than 2.5 seconds or 2.3 seconds, whatever it was, the best ever by any quarterback in any season in PFF college history. Another concern that our writer, Nick Spinola, had was he just continually bailed from clean pockets, as well as scramble rate from clean pockets was extremely high. Flip side of that is he had the most scramble yards per carry and I think scramble yards per game of any quarterback in PFF college history last year. He won the Heisman. I think ultimately, when we're talking about this from a fantasy perspective, it doesn't really matter all that much to me, because the way it's being framed, and I can agree with this, is okay, he's either rich man's RG3 or Lamar Jackson, or worst case scenario, he's Justin Fields. But Justin Fields was phenomenal for fantasy. He was a mid-range QB1 for fantasy. Every week he was out there on the field, even though he sucked ass. I don't think Jayden Daniels is going to suck ass. I loved the film. I know I'm not a film guy, but I really liked it. And I think I think he should be the redraft rookie QB1, because that Konami code is such a potent cheat code for fantasy, the rushing upside. And it really wouldn't shock me if, he could beat out Caleb Williams in fantasy points per game in each of the next 4 years. That's firmly within the realm of possibilities. That's just how potent that cheat code is. So I was debating back and forth on whether or not to have Jayden Daniels as my QB1 in this class, but I think landing spot at the end of the day wins out, and Caleb's looks much better to me.
The Commanders have taken Jayden Daniels. He will be the number 2 pick in the NFL draft, and he is a new Washington Commander, guys. Brett, what level of runner is this guy as a quarterback? Like, Scott mentioned RG3. I feel like with RG3, you had that straight line speed that is just so rare, and Jayden Daniels might have that.
Yeah, that RG3 was my comp for Jayden Daniels, so that plays. It is straight line speed. He's got some, I guess, lateral quickness. I wanted to hit something Scott said. He, talking about Jayden being the fantasy rookie redraft 101 or top quarterback or whatever. I think there's definitely a possibility that happens, especially when you consider the Commanders' passing weapons with Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. But there's a big concern for me, and that's that they don't really have a left tackle. Like, they need offensive tackle help really bad. If I were them, I'd be looking to trade back into the first round here to grab a tackle. If we're worried about pressure to sack ratio, then you're going to give, Daniels a sieve at tackle, that's not going to be helpful for his development or his ability to improve on that certain data point. So it's a little concerning for me. I do think the rushing upside, though, is so extreme that it does probably propel him as my rookie QB1 as well. Just kind of pointing out the flip side.
Now, Brett, what did you see from Jahan Dotson? Terry McLaurin, I think, is a guy who, in his NFL career so far, has been a better NFL receiver than a fantasy receiver. Jahan Dotson hasn't really been able to produce the last couple of years. Is it all quarterback play, or is there something we should worry about with Jahan Dotson, and understanding now that we're going to a brand new offense?
Yeah, actually, I thought Dotson had a really good rookie season. I thought the tape was good. I thought on a per snap basis, he was good for a rookie, especially like he wasn't a prospect I loved either. I didn't have a first round grade on him. I thought it was absurd where they took him. So I was kind of impressed coming away from his rookie year. Like, okay, maybe I was a little bit wrong on Dotson. I think maybe his ceiling's higher. But then Eric Bieniemy just ruined him last year. They got into this weird wide receiver rotation. Joe, there were games where they were playing 7 different receivers, 10 snaps or more in a game. It was so strange, and they were taking Dotson off the field to accomplish that. It made no sense to me. I think the other issue too is they tried to put him as a slot only kind of guy at times for stretches last year, and I think he needs to be on the outside a little bit. He needs to be in the Z role where he has some space to operate on the boundary, really utilize that short area quickness. Hopefully the new OC there with Cliff Kingsbury gets him back on track, because I think he's got some skills. I don't think he should be as bad as he was last year, though.
Scott, any feel on Cliff Kingsbury in this offense and what you're going to do with these receivers for fantasy, or just still kind of a wait and see approach?
Yeah, I don't know.
We got our first one.
you caught me. Yeah, you're firing off
we got our
dank
first
stats. Who's their slot wide receiver right now?
Well, was Jahan Dotson.
It was Jahan Dotson. Well, they're going to have 2 slot wide receivers, right? Because, I mean, Cliff loves his I know he went away from this, Brett, later in his tenure, but he loves his 10 personnel, doesn't he? I mean,
yeah, they're candidates to lead the league in 10 personnel, but they need to add another good receiver because they don't have anything behind Dotson and McLaurin right now. So